Wait, before you start skipping breakfast, you gotta watch this. Fasting may harm rather than help your progress. Hey there, my fit friends and food lovers. It is me, Coach Ben, the coach that cooks, helping you solve fat loss problems through food. And today, we're gonna be talking a bit more about intermittent fasting. More specifically, we're gonna talk about the right kind of person for fasting, the wrong kind of person for fasting, and which kind of person you are. That way, you can know if intermittent fasting is gonna be a good fit for you, your goals, and most importantly, your life, before you ever have to start skipping any meals in the name of fitness. I've covered more of the finer details about what fasting is and how it can help you lose weight in some other videos. If you haven't seen those, or even if you'd just like a refresher, I'll drop links for those in the description. Suffice it to say, intermittent fasting can be a great way to lose weight and to lose fat and to make great progress with your fitness goals. But, and this is a big but, it's not for everyone. This video is less about fasting itself and more about how to know whether or not fasting is a good fit for you as an individual. Because with all this fitness stuff, everything can work. The trick is finding what's gonna work best for you, because that's where the magic happens. So by the end of this video, you'll have a much better idea of whether or not intermittent fasting is the right fit for you, if it's where you'll make your magic happen and get great results. For the right person, intermittent fasting is great. It can almost make progress feel easy. But for the wrong person, it can make everything about your program feel harder and even be counterproductive to the very progress you're working so hard to make. Now, let's be real here. Fitness is hard enough as it is. Losing weight, it's hard enough as it is. You don't want to go adding in any tactic like intermittent fasting if it's just going to make it harder. And while everybody's busy talking about how intermittent fasting is the greatest thing ever, hardly anybody's talking about how sometimes it just isn't. Success stories get all the attention and make intermittent fasting out to be some universal solution to all the woes of weight loss. It's not. Sharing nothing but massive success stories paints this misleading picture that's downright problematic for fitness in general. Just because something works well for one person doesn't mean it's gonna work well for every person, because obviously, right? People are different. But marketing sells a different story. It's as if one strategy fixes all. So rather than pretend like intermittent fasting works for everybody, let's get real about when it is helpful, when it isn't helpful, and when it's just downright harmful. It really has more to do with the person than the approach. First off, you flat out shouldn't even dabble with fasting if you have any medical or health related reasons that would make fasting foolish or dangerous for you as an individual. Both physical things like chronic diseases or pregnancies, or more mental health related things like a history of eating disorders. In these cases, fasting can be potentially harmful, and no weight loss strategy should ever compromise your own health or well-being, ever. Assuming that's not the case for you, you may thrive with fasting if you want to lose fat, you like structure, schedule, and routine, or you just plain love eating food. For fat loss, it can make managing your food intake and maintaining a caloric deficit that much easier. And a deficit is simply consuming fewer calories than you're burning on a consistent basis so that you lose weight and lose fat. Because fasting adds a ton of structure to your daily eating habits, it can work really well and feel like a great fit for someone who thrives in schedule and routine. And when it comes to us food lovers, fasting often just means eating bigger meals, enjoying more of the foods you love while keeping on track with your goals. But you may struggle with intermittent fasting if you want to gain weight or build muscle, if you prefer freedom and flexibility in your day-to-day rather than structure and schedules, or you enjoy more of that frequent feeder approach where you're eating several small meals and snacks throughout the day. If you're trying to build muscle, fasting is just gonna make it harder to eat enough for your goals. If weight loss is the goal, you need that caloric deficit, right? Consuming fewer calories than you're burning on a consistent basis. If you're trying to gain weight, if you're trying to build muscle, it's the literal opposite. You need what's called a caloric surplus, where you're consuming more calories than you're burning on a consistent basis. Fasting makes it easy to maintain that caloric deficit. It makes it hard to maintain that caloric surplus. While fasting can be a big win if you thrive in routines, schedules, and structures, it can feel utterly stifling for someone who doesn't. And if you default to grazing throughout the day, fasting is gonna feel foreign, a bit weird, and just be harder to stick with. And there's really no point in doing something that you can't stick to. The best program, the best plan, is the one you'll actually follow. But I'm not just here to talk concepts, I wanna give you actionable advice too. So here's a more tangible, real life comparison. We got person one and person two. Person one likes eating bigger meals, usually isn't very hungry in the morning, not much of a snacker, can struggle limiting portion sizes sometimes, prefers 2 or 3 square meals over grazing throughout the day, thrives with routines, and if they're not being mindful, finds it all too easy to overeat. Person two gets full fast, wakes up hungry, borderline hangry, basically lives on snacks, can struggle eating enough sometimes, prefers several small meals and snacks throughout the day, has an irregular, erratic, or unpredictable daily schedule, and if they're not being mindful, actually tends to undereat. At this point of the video, it should be, hopefully, pretty obvious, right? Fasting is a much better fit for person one rather than person two. And here's a fun little fact. Person one is literally me. That's how I am, that's how I function, and that's why intermittent fasting is a really good fit for me as an individual on a personal level. But you're not me. And it's possible that you're like me, in which case maybe fasting is a good fit for you too. But maybe you're more like person 2. Maybe fasting isn't a good fit for you, your goals, or your life. Maybe it'll just make progress feel that much harder. Don't do what's popular. Do what works best for you. And now that you know whether or not intermittent fasting is the right fit for you, you can watch this video to see exactly how to get started with your very own intermittent fasting plan.